Okay, the watch list video for Tuesday, March 28th. SPY gapped down today below this kind of little bear flag here and, felt like, hey, we're finally going to tank, and then it did that. Just grinded higher all day. Um, IWM, pretty much the same thing. Took out support briefly at the open and then climbed all day. So, you know what? We're still showing strength, um, even though it's relatively weak lately. Today was a kind of a reminder to the bears that it's not going to be easy. If you think we're going to sell off, and we might over the next however whatever period, it's still nothing. The market never makes it easy for longs or shorts, in my opinion. So uh, anything can happen. Those are the three words I live by when trading. Thanks to Mark Douglas from Trading in the Zone. So anyway, here's my watch list for tomorrow. SCON. We threw this on Gap Watch today, and then it ended up with a pretty nice close. And if you look to the left over today's high, there's not a lot in the way. So this one, lower float stock. I actually called it long today. We had the gap up, so we were watching it, right? And it sold off, and then it put in this lower high. And I liked the daily. And Jane from the UK pointed out that as the seller at 137, if that seller gets taken out, it might go. And then I looked and I said, yeah, because then right above that is our next catalyst, 142, high of day break. And if you pan out, the high from the other day was 147. That's what we call in our chat room stacked catalysts. So I called this long 138. If it took out that 137 seller, looking for a push through the high of day, hoping that would give us the momentum to take out that high from a few days ago, and then the daily chart would look good. And you can see what happened. Worked like a charm. Again, teamwork in the chat room is amazing. Thank you to Jane for that one today. Had a decent trade in that one, and it goes back on watch for tomorrow because it's strong, and the daily chart does not have a lot in the way. HTGM, no way I'm not going to have this on watch when it went from 2 to 13 in a couple sessions. I'd like to see another day of selling, but still, I'm going to look for a potential bounce tomorrow. APOP. Had this on Gap Play Watch this morning, but I never caught in a trade in it because it just opened and took off. And I have to have a reason for every trade, and buying right out of the gate at the open is never a reason. That's a coin flip, so that one just ran without me. But it closed still well above its open, and it's still at all-time highs, not counting the intraday high today. So it's certainly worth watching for a follow-through day tomorrow. GBR. My best gap play call of the day. This one we added to the gap play list. If you watched the video last night, you knew this was already on our long watch list. Okay, and then it look what it did at the open. Gapped up. Sellers came in as it started to come back up. Andre mentioned it. I mentioned it over the mic after I saw Andre's post. And my idea was just through the high of day. I thought, hey, this could squeeze. Former high flyer. Sellers that came in at the open, are going to have to cover if it takes out the high of day and so on. So literally called this long, 214 idea, 199 stop, and man, that thing went nuts. It went to 379, which was a 77% move after the call today on a very tight stop that didn't get hit. And we had 103% one in HTGM last week too. So it has been some big winners. Just looking over the list. 41%, 46%, 59%. So there's been a lot of things. What I'm trying to say is the lower price stocks are starting to give those big gains again. Typically, we see that in between the big middle of earnings seasons. When you get that in between earnings seasons lull, that's when these things tend to work better from what we've noticed. So anyway, GBR, even though it's well off of its intraday high today, that one's got to go on watch for a week straight because it moved really, really well last couple days. IPXL, I never caught an entry in it. We added it to the gap playlist this morning, but I never saw what I deemed a low risk, really easy entry. But it goes back on watch tomorrow because everybody does their scans at night, and this one had massive volume. Look at, dwarfs anything in the recent past, and closed really strong. So maybe a follow through day there. GEVO, I called this one long today. This was on our overnight watch list. I called this long at 116. Okay, when it looked like this, had a seller at 115. My thinking was if it hits 116, it's probably going to be enough after taking out this 115 seller to get through the high of day. We had Friday's high, just above, and above that it certainly had room on the chart, and that worked like a charm too. If you hear me talk about inflection points, these are examples. These are the types of entries that we teach in our course, that we focus on in our chat room. And as I've said before, the one thing I'm better at than most traders, and I'm not a braggy type person, and this really isn't something maybe to be too proud of, but the one thing I'm really good at in trading is being comfortable sitting in cash unless and until I have one of these low risk inflection point type entries. So because GEVO closed so strong, and I have to zoom in so you can see it a little better. I mean, it's breaking out of a long range here on decent volume, and it's certainly worth watching again tomorrow. PSIX. Now, there's nothing that compelling about this one, except in after hours, as I'm speaking, it's trading at 947. It's some big investment in the company by some other company or something. Just glancing at the headlines, low float stock, and I think a lot of shorts because of this day. And so this one is going to be super interesting tomorrow as a potential gap and go. We don't know where it's going to open tomorrow, though, but it's certainly worth putting on a chart for tomorrow. All right? Trading all the way up here, right where my cursor is in after hours. ZAIS. This is just 2 days lower after the big gap up on earnings. All the way back down, almost a gap fill, almost to the 20-day there. Certainly worth watching for a bounce tomorrow. AUPH was on bounce watch today. No trades in it. Really back down to support now. Goes on back on bounce watch tomorrow. SEDG, nice volume spike today out of kind of a trend line break, right? And closing at its highs. Definitely want to watch that for a follow-through day tomorrow. EBIO, you had the big spike on Friday, which gave back most of those gains. And then today, an inside day. So, if it gets over today's high, over 226, you look to the left, might get it through 235, and then it might get going. So it doesn't put in a lot of big days, but it can do it. You see back here, those were some big days. Decent day right here. So it's worth watching. There's not a lot in the way if this wants to take off. And lastly, I'm going to watch IMUC. You had this huge spike here, lower high here, lower high here, consolidation, then a little bit of extra volume that spiked it here, kind of breaking, 3 weeks worth of consolidation. And then today, pretty strong. Now keep in mind, this volume spike today still was only 277,000. Show you how low volume this stock is, but certainly interesting if you kind of picture a line here. Certainly interesting over 3 because it is kind of breaking a trend line, right, from here to here to here. So this one might take off. Maybe there's news coming. I don't know. We'll also add gappers in the pre-market, and hopefully between these and the gap playlist, we can catch a few good trades like we did today. All right, enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see everybody tomorrow.